Good morning and welcome to this year's Office of Nuclear Energy webinar on innovative nuclear research and infrastructure support. My name is Brad Williams, and most of you probably recognize me as the team lead for the Nuclear Energy University programs. Just want to take a quick moment to welcome all of you. We have a lot to discuss this year, some significant changes from previous work scopes. We're adding the National Scientific User Facility as an integral piece of this year's R&D solicitation, and we'll have a presentation on that shortly. Have a couple other changes that I'll just quickly brief. One for scheduling. We have on the current agenda a presentation set for Thursday afternoon, 4:30 to 5, on nuclear energy related R&D. It's a mission supporting work scope in Appendix B under Nuclear Energy Enabling Technologies, MS NEET 1. This is a work scope that we created to kind of open the opportunities for applicants to submit their innovative ideas that don't necessarily fit within one of the other work scopes. We aren't giving a separate presentation on that, but just note that anything submitted there should be applicable to nuclear energy R&D, and it should not. It's something that does not fit in one of the other work scopes. And as Rory Kennedy and Dan Ogden will brief later, it may be an opportunity where you want to submit a joint proposal where you need R&D support and also access to one of the National Scientific User Facility capabilities. So just keep note of that. Once we post the funding opportunity announcement, you'll see the description, but we will not have a separate presentation on that work scope. The other change that I'd like to make is let everyone know that as of last week, I've accepted a new position to head up the new NEET program and NSUF program, Nuclear Energy Enabling Technologies, Cross-Cutting Technology Development, which is part of this R&D FOA and the National Scientific User Facility, which this year is also part of the FOA. And we've brought on Kenny Osborne, formerly of the DOE Idaho Operations Office, and he will take over as the lead here at headquarters for the Nuclear Energy University programs and the Integrated University programs. And with that, I'd like to introduce Kenny to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Hopefully there won't be much of a transition, and we'll be integrating quite seamlessly. We'll still be working together in the same office. So I'm happy to be here. I feel a little bit like Apple and the new iPhones every year that kind of come out and they add something new. And so we're having our little iPhone kickoff here. We'll tell you a little bit about what's new with our solicitation this year. Some changes, hopefully for the better, and take your feedback and questions. I don't want to take a lot of time other than to say I'm happy to be here and look forward to working with all of you. And, we can make this program continue on as successful as it has been. I'd like to introduce Dr. John Gilligan, who's the director of our integration office, and he's going to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. I think we're all very pleased to see how seamlessly the transition has gone from Brad to Kenny. Brad, we appreciate your leadership over the last couple of years at least, and getting us to where we've gotten to, and in service to the faculty members and the universities that are part of our program. So thank you very much. And Kenny, welcome on board, even though you've been involved in so many different ways already. Well, good morning and welcome. The Integration Office, I'm the director of the Integration Office for NEUP. This is our 7th cycle of funding for NEUP. The Integration Office, basically based at INL, are the nuts and bolts of the program, along with DOE ID, which is the DOE office in Idaho. Process the proposals, do all the peer review process, the submissions, and keep track of all the details essentially associated with the program. also myself as a faculty member at NC State University, I provide guidance in terms of the needs of faculty and universities when it comes to the NEUP program, and try to make sure that we stay on a steady course with that. So we're coming to you today from Germantown, Maryland. It's raining here. I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but it's this is the site that we've originated these webcasts over the last few years, and it's been very successful, and we look forward to hopefully this will help you in terms of you coming up to speed quickly on the new FOA that's going to be coming out here hopefully next week, okay, for the 2015 budget cycle. So I do want to mention we don't have any information on the last year's budget cycle awards. We can't at this point make any comment on that. We hope that those awards will be made very soon, and that's at a point where we can't comment on it right now, but we think that they will be made very soon, and that of course will help you guide you for how you're going to play in this next year's funding for the 2015 year, of course. So hopefully all this will work out very nicely, and the new awards will be announced, and the new FOA, which will look like this, will come out next week or so with all the details that you're going to be hearing about today. And we do want your feedback when it comes to some of the initial descriptions that we have for you today. So the FOA document, it's a large document this year, a little larger than last year. It's got the integration of the NSUF program that was mentioned. More than half of the work scopes have changed. So there's a lot of things to digest. But again, we're emphasizing the fuel cycle program, the reactor program, the NEAT program, the cross-cutting issues, the NEAMS program, and so forth. So all those are represented along with NSUF in the new cycle. We're trying to accelerate things this year in terms of the dates of submission and so forth. So we're not bumped up as we are this year with coming up with into the next year, and hopefully make awards earlier in the year, which has always been our objective. So you'll see that in the dates that we're proposing for the 2015 cycle for NEUP. We think that's a very positive thing, and we appreciate we've pushed very hard to make sure that that's happened, will happen in the future, and get everything done in an orderly way. So that's one new feature that we're going to have this year. I think the thing also I want to point out is that this is not just a nuclear engineering program. NEUP is about nuclear energy in general. Just a little bit more than half of the awards go to nuclear engineering, but a large fraction of the awards go to faculty in many other areas like mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, chemistry, physics, material science, and so forth. So this truly is a multidisciplinary kind of program, excuse me, that I think is kind of leading the way nationally in terms of how we attack multidisciplinary problems in an area like nuclear energy. So very exciting to be a part of that and see that happen. About 25% of the awards that we have every year go to new faculty, new PIs, people that have expertise in areas that we're calling up based on their expertise attacking the new problems that we're introducing. So we're very pleased about that. About 30% of the awards go to junior faculty. We think that's very healthy. And about 40% of our projects that are awarded have lab partners. National lab partners are essential component to some of the projects that we have, not all of them. So it's good to have national lab partners, but it's not essential to get an award. Like I said, only about 40% of the new awards have national lab partners. We like to see partnerships with industry as well as minority universities, underrepresented minorities, as well as international partners as well. So one pleasing outcome that has happened, I think, over the last few years, we've noticed that the number of PhDs granted in nuclear engineering nationally last year was the highest since 1972. So that's really a tribute to the support from DOE, in this area and others, other agencies to help support nuclear energy and bring the interest back to students and the research back to faculty. So that's a significant amount of progress, I think, that's been made for our program. So we're pleased to see that. So we have a number of presentations for you today. Overviews, first of all, for the CINR, which is the R&D part and the NSUF part of our program. Then later we're going to talk about the infrastructure and then go into the individual work scopes, have chances for you to ask questions. Hopefully we'll have the answers here, other than the fact that we can't comment on the current awards that are being in process right now. We'll try to answer everybody's question. There's a process to do that too online. I'd like to introduce now our manager of the integration office at INL. That's Greg Belay. We also have with us Drew Thomas, who's running the technology for us today. Thank you, Drew. But Greg has been with the office for quite a few years, and when it gets down to the mechanics of the program, he's the guy to really ask the questions and get the answers, because he's directing the staff directly at INL. Greg, thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that you've all been able to join us today. We will attempt to stay on schedule with regard to the overviews today, which means that should I finish early, we'll take a short pause before we start in with Warwick Kennedy and the NSUF effort. When that completes, you'll have opportunities to answer questions. We have with us procurement specialist from DOE ID, Aaron Gravel, who will be joining us at the podium at that point. We anticipate that that will leave us in a position where we can answer most of the questions that you have. Should we not be able to answer those questions, they will be answered offline at a later point. I would encourage you, in terms of specific questions that apply to you as an individual, we can handle those more efficiently offline. Those that are attributed to a more global nature of the FOA, I'd be happy to answer those here. In terms of what we'll speak about today, I'll give you an overview of the FOA. We will not brief individual work scopes by title, since we released those on Friday. Those will be covered in depth as we go through the next 3 days. We'll talk about key changes to the document, the processes, the procedures that we use to handle your proposals. We'll talk through the eligibility requirements and what the addition of the NSUF family means in those terms. We will once again offer the ability to link an R&D proposal with an infrastructure proposal. So we will once again brief that process, and then we will have review of the tools, submissions, and process aids that we have developed at the Integration Office. If you'd like to ask questions during the webinar, you feel free to do so. That process is detailed here in this slide. Just simply submit your questions using the GoToWebinar software in the question field. We have the capability here. Those will be displayed in real time. If we can answer those on the fly, we will. If not, we'll just bulk them up to the end. Again, specific questions of individual circumstance, please do hold those, and we will answer those offline. Once again, with the consolidation of the FOA, it is certainly in EE's intent to promote efficiency and effective use of their resources by releasing to you, the research community, all of the opportunities that you'll have to respond, so that you can more effectively put together your teams, propose your ideas, and hopefully be successful in the areas of your specialty. This also gives us an opportunity to better integrate deadlines and planning. All of the funding decisions are ostensibly made at the same time, and therefore result in a more efficiently balanced portfolio to benefit DOE and E. We give you the opportunity to request funding from multiple program elements, and that certainly, we hope, maximizes your opportunities as well as the efficiency and outcomes for DOE. We have several funding mechanisms this year. They are not changed. Cooperative agreements will be issued out of DOE for universities. For the national laboratories, we're using the work authorization process. Again, that will be managed by DOE. And if you are an industrial participant and win money, you will be issued a cooperative agreement with DOE to perform that work. The collaborative opportunities that we offer this year, as we stated, the NSUF family has joined with the NEUP program and the NEAT Crosscut to offer additional opportunities for you to make proposals. and we will have the university-led R&D applications that can be linked with the GSI, and national laboratories can also participate in that process this year. The FY13 eligibility requirements will be continuing this year. It is our hope that that ensures timely delivery of R&D. We don't mean those to be draconian or punitive, but we are looking to gain efficiency on behalf of DOE NE to better integrate the work for the programs. We will be encouraging diverse participation again for minority serving institutions as well as underrepresented groups. Those details can be found in the FOA, and they have not changed in the last 2 years. We do base our eligibility requirements on performance metrics as well as project load, which is why we have restrictions on the number of projects you can have and whether or not you hold the no-cost time extension. This year, you'll be able to find the FOA, which is number 1129 at grants.gov. You will, consistent with last year's practices, apply through neup.gov, and we will host a courtesy copy of the document there for your use. All of the forms and application instructions will be at neup.gov. Some important dates for you. It's our intent to release the FOA on Monday, August the 18th. That is just around the corner. We're working diligently to make that happen. If you are a participant through the NSUF, it is critically important that you provide a letter of intent. That will be due on September 11th. Rory and Dan will be offering more information on that. That's a critical piece of their application process, so please do circle that date on your calendar and be mindful of it. If you are an applicant for the R&D through NUP or NEAT Crosscut, your pre-application will be due October 2nd. You will also need to provide a pre-application should you be an NSUF applicant for either R&D support with access or just access only. Full applications for everything will be due on January 14th. That will be for the IRPs, for R&D, and for NSUF. Again, that is February 19th is when your full applications are due. Those will be called for on January 14th. The organization this year, we have university-led research and development, which does contain NEUP as well as NSUF work scopes. Both program and mission supporting elements are offered. If you are a university, national laboratory, or industry, we have work scopes available for you in the NEAT Crosscut as well as the NSUF Access only. Again, those will be program and mission supporting. I'll detail the differences between those for those of you who are new to us. We will have a university-only led program-directed piece. Those are our IRPs. That will be the only program-directed opportunity that we have. Our research elements, as I spoke to them earlier, mission supporting, and program-directed. Mission supporting pieces are intended to be more creative, innovative, and transformative. We offer opportunities for the mission supporting and fuel cycle, nuclear reactor R&D, and nuclear energy R&D, and the NSUF access only. Our program supporting pieces will be offered through fuel cycle, nuclear reactor RD&D, NEAMS, NEAT, and nuclear energy R&D. Program-directed IRPs this year will be featured in fuel cycle, nuclear reactor RD&D, and nuclear energy R&D. Our program supporting pieces focus more directly on programmatic needs and therefore are weighted more heavily for relevancy, and the program-directed piece is actually directed by the programs and have the highest weight for relevancy, with our mission supporting having the lightest relevancy component, and I'll detail what those ratios are shortly. For our university-led proposals, award sizes will range from $800,000 in program supporting to our mission supporting, which will be up to $400,000. We do anticipate a period of performance for 3 years. That is important. That is the anticipation. That is what you are proposing against, and we anticipate that you will be able to complete your project in that time frame. If you are an NSUF-linked participant, you'll have up to 7 years to complete the entire duration of the project. That includes anything that you're doing on behalf of NSUF, such as irradiations or post-irradiation examination, and the R&D that you would be proposing through NEUP or NEAT Crosscut. In the university-led section, only universities are eligible to lead. However, we encourage collaborations through national laboratories and industry, as well as minority serving institutions and URGs. The estimated funding level for this portion of the FOA is $33 million. We anticipate that to result in approximately 40 awards. I'd like to note that the budget numbers that we have today are based on last year's budget allocation. It has not been fully negotiated or signed in terms of DOE action, so do understand that these numbers do represent our best estimate at the given time. For our NEAT cross-cut development, which can be led by a university, a national laboratory, or industry, the award size is up to $1 million. However, do be cognizant that there may be limitations in individual work scopes. We're anticipating that the proposals in that area will come in between $800,000 and $1 million. Just in terms of the cap being $1 million, we don't anticipate that every proposal would be $1 million. We anticipate that would be dictated by the needs of the work. We will have mission supporting pieces offered through NEAT Crosscut up to $400,000. Period of performance will be the same. If you do not have a NSUF component to your project, we anticipate you to complete in 3 years. If you do have NSUF activities, the project could go up to 7 years as a composite duration. Universities, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to lead. I'll make note, consistent with our past practices, funding can go to U.S. participants only. The estimated number of awards that we have here, we have approximately $12 million in play, and we believe that that will result in 10 to 15 awards. For our IRPs, we'll be offering 4 IRPs this year, all in total for $3 million. Period of performance on the IRPs will also be 3 years. Only universities are eligible to lead. However, national laboratories and industry are certainly eligible to collaborate. And in terms of being an IRP, collaborations, as you know, are required. We do encourage international collaborations on the IRPs, and certainly that is of benefit in review of the applications. Here is a summary of the appendices that you will find in the document and who is eligible to lead against those appendices. For Appendix A, that will be U.S. universities only, and you may request R&D support or R&D support coupled with NSUF access. Appendix B will be for U.S. universities, national laboratories, or industry. You may request R&D support or R&D support coupled with NSUF access. In Appendix C, that would be for universities only. That will be the IRP section. And if you are seeking NSUF access only, you will find that work scope in Appendix D of the document. Our collaboration guidance has not changed. Universities, industries, national laboratories, and foreign institutions are strongly encouraged. We continue to attempt to enhance and diversify DOE's research portfolio by giving additional consideration as detailed in the FOA for minority serving institutions. That is an attribute that requires to the institution only, or underrepresented groups. That is an attribute of the individual who must self-identify and provide some defining words on the application in that regard. For university-led applications, except for work scopes under Appendix B, no more than 20% of the total budget may go to an entity other than a university. Funding is for U.S. university researchers only, although again, we do encourage foreign collaborations. However, we do not provide funding to the foreign collaborator. Here's some key changes and policy reminders in the FOA this year. Anything that is bold is something that we are looking to actually encourage and perhaps enforce a little more this year. All of the PIs and collaborators are considered final when the pre-application is submitted. This is critically important in terms of our ability to manage the conflict of interest against the reviews. All participants who are providing any material support must be named on your application form. That precludes us from getting into a conflict of interest. Please understand that if we run into a severe conflict of interest, it could nullify the entire work scope, so you in essence jeopardize all of your peers. We will address extenuating circumstances as needed in terms of needing to make changes between the pre-application or the full application. We handled a number of those last year. Few were declined, but most were successful. You as the PI are responsible for defining the work scope. DOE NE has no responsibility or authority to move your application without your explicit permission. It is something that is happening less frequently as time goes on, so please be careful as you review the work scopes and place your proposal accordingly. The full application must be completed within the work scope to which it is submitted. It means that you cannot select a different work scope. In fact, you are precluded from doing so on the application side. For review purposes, conflict of interest, if required, will be attributed to the individual, not the institution. But our overwhelming approach to conflict of interest attributes those conflicts to the institution, which is why it's so critically important that everyone on your application is named. You as an individual or an institution are responsible for not exceeding the submission limit. Should you exceed that submission limit, we'll give you a short period of time to redact the proposal of your choice. If you cannot meet that time frame, we will simply recuse all of your proposals. Submittal guidelines have not changed. We have added some components to submittal guidelines. If you are a current year PI, you can submit up to 6 applications, with no more of those being 3 as a lead PI. For those applications that may have an opportunity to be funded, you may not have more than 3 active R&D projects at any given time. And if you have a no-cost extension, you may not compete in this call. NSUF projects that also have R&D support will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, because we understand that there may be time in which you yourself are not active on the project. We will have none of those this year. That would happen in the coming years as NSUF projects are brought on board. For submissions to all sections of this FOA, university PIs, no more than 6. National laboratory PIs do not have that limitation. However, you do have your own limitations in the NEAT section. By organization, you may have no more than a given number of applications per work scope area, and that number of applications that you can have, you may lead no more than 3 submissions, and those will count if you are a university PI. For IRPs, you are ineligible to submit an application as the PI if you are designated as a PI for more than 1 currently funded DOE NE project that will still be active beyond December 31st. You may have no more than 1 IRP or 3 R&D projects funded at any time. If you are a NSUF access-only applicant, those applications are excluded from these eligibility guidelines. We do have a flow sheet that is available on the web that will step you through the process. It's a simple question and answer based form that should apply to your individual circumstances to help you be compliant with these requirements. Restrictions are attributed to the institution, not the individual, for NEAT. So that means as a national laboratory, you have a certain number of applications that you can submit, and that number is 3. 3 applications per work scope per laboratory may be submitted. And again, if a university PI is designated as the lead, those submissions will count against the overall university limitation, or the PI limitation for other sections. Institutions and individuals are responsible for not exceeding limitations, so please do be cognizant that others at your institution may be submitting an application. For applications led by universities, cost sharing is encouraged but not required. Applications led by industry are required to have a 20% cost share, and that is required only of the lead institution. The cost is based on the total allowable costs of the project and must not come from federal sources. The total allowable cost of the project is the sum of the government's share, including the national laboratory costs, and if applicable, the recipient share. It does not apply to NSUF-only applications. Once again, we will have data needs for validation. This was Appendix D in last year's FOA. It is Appendix E in this year's FOA. DOE continues their interest in leveraging multiple needs to the extent possible. This appendix does provide a description of key data needs for validating advanced modeling and simulation tools that are being developed by NE, and that's specifically to CASEL and NEAMS. Researchers are encouraged to evaluate their applications in light of this information and react accordingly on the application site. You'll have opportunity to affirm that your application may support Appendix E and provide some words to that effect of how that happens. You may again link an R&D application with a GSI application. Every institution may submit a single non-linked application. Multiple applications must be linked. That FOA that we will brief later in the day is 1130. It again seeks applications from U.S. universities, colleges, and again this year through NEED Crosscut National Laboratories. And as I stated, all of the applications for GSI, with the exception of one, must be linked to an R&D application. This linkage facilitates better enabling the purchase of equipment with DOE mission and need, provides focus for the projects that buy that equipment, and does enhance the ability of researchers to coordinate their research proposals with the equipment needs that they have, and potentially greatly leverages your ability to perform work instead of buy equipment with R&D funding. Now do know that this linkage does not come without peril. Both proposals must compete and win in separate review actions. If one proposal is not successful, neither proposal will be funded. The joint solicitation review process is consistent with last year's. All you need to do is affirm that it is a joint proposal and then provide a little additional detail. It applies to applications that are submitted by universities and colleges as well as national laboratories. Again, this is critical. Success is predicated on positive review by both programs, and if you have an ineligible R&D proposal for any reason, your GSI proposal will also be ineligible. That also works that if your GSI proposal is ineligible, your R&D proposal will be eligible. We have a full listing of all current R&D and infrastructure projects on our website at neup.gov. We do ask that the need for the requested equipment be immediate and directly tied to the appropriate NE mission. I have a few words on review processes, tools, and submissions. This is very consistent with last year. Nothing has changed. We have updated our review criteria. Those are fully documented in the FOA. We hope that this will give the peer reviewers as well as the relevancy reviewers better opportunity to identify with your work and provide consistent reviews. Both program supporting and mission supporting applications at the full state are reviewed in a semi-blind process that is consistent with our past practices. Pre-applications are not semi-blind. All applications for pre have 2 relevancy reviewers and at least 1 peer. That results in invited and not invited status. If you are not invited, you may submit a full application through the process described in the FOA, and if it is judged highly relevant and of program priority, it will be given a technical review. For our full application, the typical reviewer load is 2 relevancy and 3 peer. At any given time, that number may fluctuate to the high side, depending on how those reviews come back. Program-directed applications are reviewed individually. They are not a semi-blind process. It is a common set of reviewers in a panel setting in terms of those reviews, and we have a minimum of 5 reviewers, 2 of whom are relevancy, 3 are peer reviewers. We talked earlier about mission supporting, and program directed ratios. If you provide us with a mission supporting application, 80% of the score will be attributed to the technical merit, 20% to relevancy. Program supporting is 65% technical and 35% relevancy, and our program directed has our highest relevancy weighting at 50% technical and 50% relevancy. If you are an NSUF access only applicant, your proposal will be evaluated with 80% of the weight on its technical merits, 20% based on relevancy, and in this case, relevancy does, in all cases, relevancy does include program priority. Criteria for all sections and all application types are detailed in the FOA, consistent with our past practices. We do give additional relevancy consideration for effective partnerships, including MSI and URGs, as we visited earlier. Our program priority is now a separate criteria. that has historically been embedded in relevancy, hoping to provide some additional clarity in not only feedback to our participants, but in terms of lightening the load just a little bit for relevancy reviewers in terms of making that a more clear and distinct category. I have two tables that provide some clarity at a glance. Not only the video feed of this, but the presentation itself will be loaded on the NEUP website for your future review. This details who may lead an application, which appendix the work scopes are found in, the estimated available budget, the maximum award sizes for the areas that we have, the duration of the project, whether or not you have the ability to link to GSI or NSUF, and who is eligible to collaborate. I would like to make a special note that for NSUF access only, that budget of $3.7 million is not provided to an individual PI. Those are the funds that are provided to the institution where the work will happen for the access. Rory and Dan will both have additional information for that as we go through the day. This second half of this table picks up the neat crosscut work, if you will, for the university, the national labs, and industry. Again, it's laid out the same, so you can peruse that at your leisure, and hopefully that will better help you understand where the work scopes are found for your individual needs, the amount of funding that is available, and where you can make the linkages that you have. We have several tools for understanding the FOA on our work site, on the website. We have the eligibility workflow, which will help you identify your individual circumstances. We have the federal and technical points of contact for your use up to the point in time that a pre-application is submitted. And we have those federal points of contact for the IRPs, and those may be used up until the last closing date for the full application, as a pre-application is not required for the IRP. We have contact information for you. The federal and technical points of contact can be found on the website that we had above, or you can find that link at neup.gov. DOE ID procurement questions should be directed to Aaron Gravel. His email is there. The NE Integration Office is available to handle your application questions. The phone number here is for Ryan Jensen at 208-526-1507. And your questions can be directed by email to neup@inl.gov. I'd like to close with a reckoning of the important dates. We anticipate release of the document on Monday, August the 18th. If you are an NSUF participant for R&D, dollar, or access only, if you participate through NSUF under any circumstance, your letter of intent is due on September 11th. Pre-applications for research and development applications, including those linked to NSUF, will be October 2nd. We will call for the full applications by submitting the invited and not invited information by January 14th. Your full applications will be due on February the 19th, and your IRP applications will also be due on February 19th. We will brief separately the infrastructure for GSI and reactors, and we'll be happy to provide those dates at a later presentation. With that, I notice that I am slightly early. As we stated before, we're going to go ahead and stay on schedule with the presentations today, which means at 11 o'clock we'll start with the National Scientific Use Facility Overview. That'll be Rory Kennedy and Dan On.
In regards to NSUF, is the letter of intent optional?
No, the letter of intent is not optional. It is required. Without a letter of intent, you will be precluded from participation.
Why is a mission supporting project only $400,000?
Typically, those applications for mission supporting projects tend to be a little higher in risk, a little less directly tied to the actual mission of NE, and therefore typically of a little less in terms of the amount of work that NE is willing to see done on that type of an application before we have the appropriate type of information to potentially turn that into a program supported piece.
Could you please clarify the January 14th date?
January 14th is when the full applications will be called for. That is the point in time at which we will have your pre-applications fully reviewed, and we will release letters that indicate whether you are invited or not invited to participate. Please remember that a not invited application may still provide a full application. However, it is not guaranteed a technical review.
Is it a requirement that a PI must come from NEUP-approved colleges and universities?
No, it is not. That is only a requirement in terms of obtaining support through the Integrated University Program for scholarship or fellowship.
What is the difference between relevancy and peer in regards to review?
Relevancy is just that. It is the relevancy to DOE NE mission and program needs. The second part of that question was the technical piece. Well, for peer review is technical merit. So the peer review speaks to the technical merit of the application, and the relevancy review speaks to its relevancy to the DOE mission or its ability to support and enhance NE's needs.
Can we link a GSI proposal to a currently funded NUP research project, or does it have to be linked to a new proposal?
It should be linked to a new proposal. We would anticipate that you would have in your prior application provided all the equipment that you need to actually perform the work. So you could certainly enhance your ability to perform work with a current GSI application, but it should not be a linkage, as a linked application is stating that the equipment is required to actually perform the work.
In collaborative projects with industry, how do you determine who is the lead and whether cost sharing is required?
Cost sharing is only required if the application lead is industry. It is not required, although encouraged, if it is submitted by a university, and it absolutely cannot happen if it is a federal national laboratory, since then it would just be the government matching their own funds with their own funds. The lead of the application, in my opinion, would be the individual or the institution that is not only responsible for the entirety of the work, but perhaps providing most of the intellectual horsepower and actually performing the work.
In regards to NSUF, at the letters of intent stage, should all the PI, co-PIs, collaborators, and institutions be identified?
Those must be identified by the pre-application, do not need to be identified on the letter of intent. Murray and Dan will both have more information in that regard.
Is citizenship required for all or part of the programs?
No, it is not. You do need to be employed by a U.S. university.
What is the maximum award for a joint proposal between a school and a national laboratory? The project lead being the school.
That's going to depend on the area. If it is a neat crosscut, it could be up to $1 million for program supporting, $400,000 for mission supporting. If it is in a NEUP-sponsored area, it would be up to $800,000, and national laboratories may not lead in that regard, nor could industry, and the cap for mission supporting would be $400K. And as I'm reminded, if you are a collaborator against a university piece of work, there may only be 20% of the total allowable costs that could go to the collaborators in a NEUP-sponsored application. If the application is against NEET crosscut, there is no limit on the amount of money that may flow to the collaborators.
Can a non-tenure track faculty at a university be a PI?
Absolutely.
Which proposals need letters of intent?
Only those applications that are affiliated with the National Scientific User Facility. And that would be for access only, or if you're co-joined with an R&D request for funding.
Why is the pre-application review process semi-blind and not fully blind?
The pre-application review process is not blind at all, and the full application review process is semi-blind. The semi-blind process means that only the technical narrative is viewed without knowledge of the authors or institutions that are involved. At that point in time, after those scores are entered, then they're locked down. The rest of the information for the application is delivered to the reviewer that includes CVs, budgets, facilities, benefits of collaboration, all the other associated and affiliated documentation, and that is reviewed fully open. That is the difference between a full blind and a semi-blind review. For our pre-applications, there is no blind. They are cognizant of who the author is, what the institution is. Those are a limited 3-page effort, only intended to vet the technical merit and the relevancy of the idea that results in an invited or not invited status.
Will non-invited full applications get reviewed?
They will receive a relevancy review. Unless highly reviewed for relevancy and program priority per the FOA, they will not receive a technical review. But yes, of course, certainly they could if they are rated high for relevancy and program priority. They do receive a technical review.
Why is the pre-application not a semi-blind review process?
It has not been part of our process. It makes it difficult to provide that information. We ask for only a single document in terms of our pre-application for the technical narrative, the budget, the collaborations, and in order to make that a semi-blind process would require that we obtain multiple documents from our applicants, and it would also make it a much more difficult lift to fully refuse. John?
I would only add that the pre-application is only 3 pages, and it's pretty hard to hide anything in such a short application. The whole purpose is just to get feedback to the folks that are submitting the proposal, and so that's why that's open, if you will.
I'm going to reword this a little bit because I think I understand the intent.
Okay.
It's asking, can applicants submit a DOE career proposal? I'm assuming that means as a national laboratory, under a national laboratory, and also submit a university proposal as a staff member at a university.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. If it's the same applicant that works both at a national laboratory and has a part-time faculty affiliation, you have to declare to be either one or the other, and it should be the institution where you receive the most support. So we don't allow you to come at it from both sides of the fence. Certainly if you are an applicant working in a national laboratory and you have an appointment at an academic institution, that academic institution could be a collaborator or vice versa, and that would have the same collaboration restrictions in terms of total available funding that any other package had.
Clarification just came in. They're intending to say a DOE career proposal for young scientists.
We don't currently have that, but John does have quite a bit of data in terms of the faculty breakdown. I'll let him speak to that.
The career program is, I believe, only through the Office of Science at DOE and not through DOE NE. So I think, yeah, you can submit a proposal, any kind of proposal to Office of Science. Typically, it wouldn't be the same kind of proposal you would submit here because ours tend to be much more applied, the kind of things that we're looking for. So, yeah, go ahead and apply for the career award there or within SF or anybody else.
Do the same individuals review the pre-applications and the full applications for
No,
a given proposal?
No, they do not. In terms of having a single point so that we understand if there has been some change requested, that proposal is made available to the technical reviewer from the pre-application stage. But we always balance a full application with 3 peer reviewers. Any review that's outside in terms of being high or low is addressed. If that happens, we have the opportunity to either fully recuse the review, find a new reviewer, or interface with the current reviewer.
Is a full application declared invalid if the proposing institution is identified in the narrative?
We do what we can to work with our applicants between our pre-application and the full application. We do turn those back to the applicants and allow them 24 hours to rectify any redaction problems we have. If they simply refuse in that regard, we could recuse the application. However, we do not have that happen to date.
Can a PI on a proposal as a university lead also serve as a co-investigator on a proposal by a national laboratory lead?
I believe that they could. I don't know that that's something that we have had happen in the past. I'm not sure what the attraction to that would be unless there was equipment available.
Separate.
On a separate proposal?
Yeah,
Oh, certainly on a separate proposal. We've had that happen
Sure.
numerous times. Please do know that with the budgets that are available, we have seen proposals in the past where it appears that the individual doing most of the work is actually one of the collaborators. Those have historically not reviewed well as that data is made available. So do be mindful of that.
How do you identify conflict of interest among your reviewers?
Conflict of interest in terms of attribution to the institution. If we have a series of applications We identify all of the institutions who are active in that group of applications. We then attempt to find a reviewer who is not affiliated with those institutions in terms of reviewing the entire work scope. So what that means is someone from your institution is not only precluded from reviewing your application, they're precluded from reviewing any application in the work scope unless it's just not possible to find a reviewer. And then we can attribute that, that conflict of interest to the individual. When we do that, we have to affirm that those individuals are not in the same line of management or that there was any technical or managerial direction given to the applicant by the reviewer.
And of course, reviewers have to declare that they're not conflicted when they actually do the reviews. So we're looking for that. When you apply for a full application, you can suggest reviewers that you do want and don't want as well. I think that's a possibility. So we try to look at all the possibilities and then knowledge that we have from other sources as well.
If a PI or co-PI is awarded a project, is it possible to transfer that project to a new institution if
Yes.
the PI moves?
Yes, it is. Now, I will note that any equipment that you have purchased off of that, your individual university may feel some ownership of that. The outcome of that equipment is an issue that happens between you and your university. We can only provide defense in terms of the equipment being purchased off of your received funds from the program.
Can one PI from a university submit multiple proposals?
Yes, a PI from a university can submit multiple applications. You are bound by the eligibility restriction in the FOA. You can submit 3 as a PI and be involved in up to 6 applications in total. I'm going to invite Kenny Osborne to the podium to provide a little additional detail on the question that was asked in terms of switching an application between institutions if the PI should change locations. Kenny?
It's a little more difficult than just approving the change. That the receiving institution has to be of the quality and have the facilities to do the work. There's some procurement issues involved with the transferring grants and money, and so it's not just an easy procedure. We would prefer not to, but we know it happens, and we'll address them on an individual basis. But it's not a given, not always approved. So I didn't want to give the impression that it was just a simple thing that we do all the time. So.
We have time for one additional brief question, and then I'll welcome Rory Kennedy to the podium to discuss the NSUF with you.
Does the proposal require an education component or outreach to underrepresented groups similar to what an NSF project requires?
No, it does not.